Her Journey to Healing, Reaching Women with a Desperate Cry is an 8-week Zoom seminar in which Kamala and Winston help women to start living their best life by rediscovering the image of God in their life. Kamala, a licensed marriage and family therapist, joins her husband of 16 years, an ordained pastor, to marry the clinical and the spiritual. You will begin living your best life filled with love, joy, and peace. Register at kwministries.net for this life-changing seminar.
God is patient. God is kind. God is long-suffering. God never fails. God always hopes. God always trusts. God always perseveres. God doesn't envy. God doesn't boast. God doesn't seek his own, but is always seeking what's best for you. God rejoices in the truth.
That's right.
God doesn't define love. God demonstrates love. Hello, my name is Winston Taylor.
And I'm Kamala Glenn Taylor.
We would like to welcome you to our first episode of Her Journey to Healing, Reaching Women with a Desperate Cry. Oh, that I know the exact definition of love.
I think for a lot of us that our definitions of love don't just start when we're adults. So if you think about it, where did you first learn to love? Who'd you learn it from? What were the models that you had? Who were the people that you followed along with, and who taught you how to love? And that's where we start to answer that question.
I think this would be a good journal point if you could write in your journal, where did you learn to love?
So anxious resistant. Now remember there were 4 categories, right? So anxious resistant kids were on the opposite end of the spectrum. They didn't have a lot of self-confidence. They really clung to their caregivers, whether it's parents. When I say caregivers, I mean parents, grandparents, just
Whoever's taking
people in
care
their
of them.
lives who were, really part of that initial bonding experience. For these kids, they tended to have really exaggerated emotional reactions to stuff, but they also kept the distance from their peers. How did this translate into adulthood? That translated into anxious, preoccupied adults. And so they kind of formed less secure bonds with partners, and feel really desperate for love and affection. All right. We are back, and it is Monday Night Live with KW Ministries. We are so excited to be here again with you another Monday night. I know we've got a couple people who are already viewing online. We want to encourage you to reach out, comment. Tonight is going to be another great night here with us. So a little background, as always, because we want to, for those people who are probably logging in for the first time, maybe you've never seen Monday Night Live, and you're like, well, what is KW Ministries? What are these people blathering on about on a Monday night? Why is this so exciting? So just as a reminder, KW Ministries is about reaching people with a desperate cry. What does that mean? And so for us at KW Ministries, my husband and I, Winston Taylor, we formed this ministry out of our own desperate cry, out of our own challenges, out of our own struggles with, guess what? Marriage. Like many people, we struggled in our marriage and reached a place that was really dark and was really uncertain. And with God's help, we were able to move through that dark place and start getting to the other side. Now, notice I said getting to the other side, because reaching people with a desperate cry is an acknowledgement that the healing process is indeed a process. And so as people navigate different aspects of their life, whether it's marital stuff, whether it's other challenges, what we find is that we have a lot to give each other in terms of that healing journey. So KW Ministries was formed out of that. And we have this platform now where our goal is to share how we're going through our healing journey and provide a platform where others who are going through their journey as well can share with you. And so we're really glad to just be here, share our story. And our Monday Night Live is really just about also interacting with other people. So we're excited tonight. We're going to have Elle Cole on in just a couple of minutes. We're going to spend some time just kind of remind you to jump to the shop. You can see it here, kwministries.net. We want for you to jump on over to the website, kind of see what's there and what's involved. And I see that Jen is on and watching. Thanks, Jennifer. Good to see you. Good to see you. We had Jennifer on last week week before last actually, talking about her journey to healing. And man, what a powerful session that was. A couple of weeks ago, we met Alicia Sangster of Puretopia, and she was talking through how she started her journey of hair healing is what we called it. And she started a whole product line called Puretopia for kids who have sensitive skin. So all hypoallergenic products, just a marvel of manufacturing. And her story was one that was great. So we want to remind you, of course, of a couple of things that we have to offer here at KW Ministries. And so I always like to start our segment with a little reminder of where it all began. So I told you a little bit about our story, where we were in a really dark place in our own relationship, and how through God's help, we started to be able to navigate that experience. And so in doing that, one of the first things that we were able to bring to the table is our first devotional, The Journey Begins. And for those of you who are able to see this, book 1, The Journey Begins was all about the healing process of getting to know God, and getting to know God in a way that we probably haven't done before. I really like this little book. It's a great starter if you don't know where to start in building a relationship with God. A lot of us right now can really, really relate to being tired. A lot of us can really relate. Gosh, it's been COVID-19 for how many years now? Oh my gosh, are we done yet? No. So a lot of us can really, really relate to this feeling of being tired. And there's a chapter here in this little book, Devotional 1, that says, "Are you tired?" And there's a little part in it that I really, really like that says, "He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak." It's actually a verse from the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 29. And so the question is asked, is mental anguish the thing that's destroying you? And then the encouragement is given, "Oh, friend of mine, if you're weary and you're tired and life has just worn you out, God wants to renew your strength today." That's just a little teaser. And that is only out of our very first devotional, The Journey Begins. Of course, at this point, we have gone beyond the journey beginning and we have taken it to a couple of different places. So devotional number 2, A Journey Through Spiritual Warfare, was the second thing that came out of our own journey of healing. Now, a number of things have come out of our journey of healing. So we're just giving you a quick snapshot of what we've done so far, and not so much to say that we've arrived. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. We are still very much in process. But God has showed us that if we trust in Him, He'll give us the tools and resources we need. So we had our devotionals. We're up to devotional number 4, which is a real treat. After we went through A Journey Through Spiritual Warfare, we took the next devotional as in A Journey Through Revelation. Look, it's Jesus. Why is that so important and so exciting to me? A lot of us don't like the book of Revelation. It's like, oh no, scary, judgment, all that stuff. And this devotional is a reminder is that that's not what the book of Revelation is about. It's about us getting to a place of connection with God. And if that isn't exciting stuff, I don't know what is. Devotional number 4, which is our current and our most recent one, is A Journey with Jesus Through the Gospel of John. The beautiful thing about this devotional that this is all about believing in Jesus. How do I even do that? So it's a great journey. It's a great, great journey. And we have so much that we want to share with you. So jump on over to www.kwministries.net. Check out the store. We've got a lot of great stuff in there, not just the devotionals that I mentioned. Those are pretty good. But I'm going to tell you about some other things later on when we get to it. So tonight, we have a fantastic guest that we are going to be bringing on. She is Elle Cole of Cleverly Changing. I'm not even going to tell you anything about it. When we bring her in, we're going to let her introduce herself, tell us about her, tell us what is Cleverly Changing, and why is it that this fits in so well with what we're doing here at KW Ministries. Trust and believe that this is going to be exciting stuff tonight. Chatted with Elle a couple of days ago, and it was like, oh, we're all friends. Fantastic. It was an easy conversation. So I know that you're going to enjoy having her on tonight. So before we bring Elle into the studio, we want to go to a quick break. We'll go to our first ad break, and then we will bring her right in. All right, all right. Hey, Elle, how are you?
Hello, it is a pleasure to be here with you tonight.
I am super excited about having you on, and I know Jennifer is already on, and she's been blowing up Facebook. So, Jen, I know we're gonna have a great time here tonight with Elle. Elle, I want to jump right into it. First of all, tell us about you. The people watching, who is Elle Cole?
Sure. So I am a mom of twins. I have two 13-year-old children, so I'm sure they don't want me to call them my babies, but they are still my babies. And I am a wife. I have been married for 16 years. Next month will be our 17th year.
Awesome.
And we met in college, so it feels like a whole lot longer than 17 years. But it has been a wonderful journey and just a blending of cultures, a blending of understanding. And so I'm very happy that the Lord is definitely working with us. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I started my blog. That was my first venture into entrepreneurship. My children were only 2 at the time, and I needed an outlet and a community. And so my husband mentioned to me that I should start a blog. And so
Mm.
that was something that wasn't really on my radar, but it gave me an opportunity to kind of meet new people and share my testimony in a positive and uplifting way. So I like the verse in the Bible that says, "You will know them by their fruits." And
Mhm.
I feel like when I'm able to share my experiences and get to know other people and learn from their experiences, I feel like that's a part of that verse.
Mhm.
Getting to know what someone is putting out, getting to know their fruits, and getting to know my fruits. So that is just a part of who I am. I'm also an author. So I have now published 4 books,
Nice.
and I just thank God for giving me that desire and making it something that has come true for me. I always wanted to be a writer and an author, and the Lord has definitely allowed that to happen for me. And so, just like He allowed it to happen for me, if that's something that you're thinking about, God can definitely allow that to be something that you can do as well. So,
Nice. Now, Elle,
yeah.
hang on just a second. There were two things that you said, and I was like, I want to hear a little bit more about that. The first one was kind of, maybe it's me being a little bit nosy, but you said that you and your husband are from diverse backgrounds. Tell us about that. What do you mean?
So, here's the thing. I feel like sometimes, even though we're both Black Americans, we just have a little bit different backgrounds in terms of I was raised by a single mother. And we
Mhm.
sometimes don't look at that like it's a different culture, a different mindset, but it really is. I grew up just doing everything on my own, just this independent woman mindset. And
Mhm.
that's really how I've taken on the world. And
Yeah.
sometimes in a relationship, when you are with someone else, that
Mhm.
sort of mindset isn't necessarily that beneficial. And so
Yes.
it's something I've had to learn. My husband came from a 2-parent home, and he definitely was looking more for a team player sort of companionship. And
Mhm.
so that was something that I had to learn because I'm like, well, I'm used to doing things on my own the way I want to do them and being in control. And
Mhm.
in a relationship, you got to work together. You have to compromise, communicate. And so, although, just looking at us, you would think that those two things would come naturally
Mhm.
and we would be the same, but it's actually very different. Coming from 2 different backgrounds, at least that's what I have learned. And I'm just being real. If you know me, you
Absolutely.
know I like to be real. So,
And I love that I love your candor because I think that's actually really important to the journey that you're about to take us on. in terms of, how do we adjust and move through life in a way that may be different from how I'm used to doing it before or how I thought it was going to be. And so the next little piece that I found that I was like, I want to hear a little bit more about that. You said when you started your first blog, it was out of wanting an outlet. An outlet for what? What was going on at that time?
So I gave birth to my girls. Man, it feels like so long ago, but I gave birth in 2008. And a lot of my close friends were still in graduate school. They're still working, still, doing fun things, hanging out. And they didn't necessarily want to hear the milestones and the journey that I was on as a new mother. And so that sort of experience said, hey, you need a community of people. And although I was going to church, I'm an introvert by nature. And my husband and I had moved to a different state.
All right. All right, we'll take it. We'll take it. She's an introvert.
Yeah, it may be hard to believe, but I am. And here's the thing. I had been going to a church for about a year, but I hadn't necessarily made any close relationships.
Yeah.
And as a new mom, I think you really need someone or people, a community of people to kind of bounce ideas off of, to just talk to, just to have an adult to communicate with. And so that was really hard for me early on in my experience as a mom, because I was going to the church, but I didn't really know anybody. I had colleagues at work, but they were also young. Many of them were in graduate school. So it was just like many of my friends. And there were some older colleagues, but, as a young mother, I was still in my 20s at the time. It was just like I was trying to find my place.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have to create that place. And that's how it was for me. I had to create a community where I could find like-minded people and people who were willing to be honest, willing to share, and people who would respect my journey. Because sometimes as moms, we can be very judgmental about each other. And so I needed a safe place without judgment. And I needed to be able to pour into people. So I didn't want it to just be one-sided where I'm just receiving, because there was a lot that I needed, but I also wanted to give. And I had, love in my heart, and I had been going on a journey, and I'm not afraid to share about my journey. And so that's really how it all started. I said, I'm a mom. I had quit my job just a couple of months, probably about a year prior. And I quit my job because I found out that I have twins, and one of my twins was diagnosed with sickle cell and type 1. And so I realized early on when I went back to work that it wasn't going to work out for me.
I want to pause you right there, Elle, because I want to ask you something, because we probably have people who are viewing who similarly, and there goes Eva saying hi.
Hi, Eva.
So there are probably people who can relate to getting that news that their child has a chronic illness. And that can be really challenging to absorb as a parent for the first time. Tell us a little bit about that headspace that you were in when you first heard that, and gosh, what does that now mean for us as parents, as a couple? How do we navigate this? Where was your headspace?
So I was surprised, because as someone I have a strong faith and a strong belief system, and I had been praying. 20 weeks into our pregnancy, my husband and I found out we were carriers of the sickle cell trait. And so in that moment, we began to pray that our babies would not have sickle cell. the doctor had told us that we had 1 in 4 chance of having a child with sickle cell disease. And so we started to pray. And it turns out that when I gave birth, she was tested. They do newborn screening, and the test confirmed that my daughter had sickle cell SS. And I was devastated in the moment because I said, God, we had done everything that you've asked of us, up until this point. And I have been faithful and honest and true. And I felt like my prayers weren't answered in that moment. And so I had to kind of regroup and say, look, it is what it is. And
Yes.
what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
And so I talked to my husband, and he said, we got this. And as parents who are young and who had moved away from their family and their support system, we really had to learn how to lean on each other and be honest with each other. We really had to learn how to truly love in that moment because our children needed us. My children are fraternal, and so only one of my daughters has sickle cell SS. And we immediately had to find a hematologist, which is a blood specialist. And together we had to do that research. And so, yes, getting a diagnosis that your child will have a chronic illness is devastating, but it's not the end of the world. And so by finding doctors who loved us, loved our children, and who were willing to help us learn how to partner with them to keep her healthy, we have had a wonderful journey and experience. And while everything isn't easy, because it's true, the diagnosis is difficult, there are many ebbs and flows and many complications that can exist, we have learned how to educate ourselves and research what our child needs and make sure that we are also learning from other people in the community. That's really what got me on social media, what really helped me learn how to connect with other people, because I needed to know how to keep my daughter healthy, but also know what the progression of sickle cell would be like. And I credit those who I have met along this journey who have sickle cell disease, who are helping me understand how to be a better mother, how to be a better wife, how to be a better caregiver. And it's even made me a better daughter, a better sister, and a better friend, because I now have a level of empathy and compassion for others that I didn't have before.
Wow. Now, Jennifer Wilson has a really great question that I think ties in right here with what you're talking about. She asked the question, how does having a community around you help in your growth, both spiritually and emotionally?
Well, I believe that we need relationships to understand how God works in our lives. And I feel like that's a strong statement, because so many of us are like, I just can't deal with people. But I think that when we think about God being a person of love, we know what that is by the way we interact and care for others. So I feel like that foundation of love in itself is how we show up in helping others, in serving others, and being there for ourselves and when people need us. And so I think it boils down to preparing our characters for something greater. And it's been a character journey for me. I am one of those persons who, I mentioned earlier, I'm an introvert. And whether it's hard or not, I've had to learn how to step aside and get to know people, be willing to share my story, be willing to let people in so that I can bless others and so that others can bless me. And that is through relationships. That is through talking, through listening, through understanding through being there. And so I feel like you have to be willing to connect. I think it's
Yes.
about connection and growth. When we think about our spiritual journey, it's not an isolated one. It's
Mm-hmm.
not one that just deals with us alone and where we are in a mental space. It's one that we have to kind of reach beyond ourselves, beyond
Yes.
our own personal needs,
Yes.
be willing to see what the universe and what the world is calling us to do. And
Yes.
I think that directly ties into our purpose. And a
Mm.
lot of times our purpose is connected with the way we show up for other people.
I love it. Elle, you have such a nuanced way of talking about things that I think is so crucial, has always been crucial, but right now, just in the way that, people are going through challenges, and whether that challenge is health or otherwise, it's so important to be able to share our stories so that people don't feel like they're alone in it. So I love the way you're talking about this. So I'm really curious about, so you started off with the blog as an outlet for where things were in your life at that point and having that need to just to be able to connect. How did we get from the blog to Cleverly Changing? Tell us that part of the journey.
So, when you begin to show up in places and you are transparent, you will begin to be given a lot of different types of opportunities. And so for me, that has blossomed into a podcast because on my journey, I have homeschooled my kids. Now, it wasn't something I ever thought I would do. I went to public school and private school as a kid. And so I naturally thought as soon as my children reached school age, they would also go to school. But
Yeah.
I started homeschooling because my daughter's pediatrician recommended it. And
Wow.
so that began to just kind of tug on my heart to pour into my community as a Black woman. Because sometimes when we go into homeschool places, it is not always a space where we are seen and heard. And
Yes.
so I said, if I can use my voice, let me speak up, let me share what I'm learning, let me share what has worked, what hasn't. There have been times when I failed in my homeschooling journey. My very first
That's real.
portfolio, I didn't pass it. And the portfolio person told me, sis, you need to go back and try again. And I'm not afraid to share that because
Yeah.
after that, things got better. And before she retired, she said, I love how you've blossomed. And I love how your journey has progressed. And you are doing so well. You're doing phenomenal. And she gave me a hug. So it was like she had become a part of my village.
Yes.
And she had poured into me like she was a mother. So it was mother to mother. This is a woman who's a part of the school board. And sometimes we need that. We need that from other people in our community because trying to juggle being a wife, being a mom of twins, having a child with health challenges, going to doctor's appointments, and having a business on my own, and just trying to be so many things, juggling so many hats. I was struggling in that very first year. It was very hard. And I'm not afraid to tell that to people because where I started and where I am now are two totally different places. And I think we have to be honest that everything isn't always roses when you begin. There will be some bumps, there will be some rocky roads, there will be some twists, some turns, some ups and downs, and we have to be honest about that. I've had my bumps and bruises, and I've been able to overcome them. And that's why I share. So the podcast is one thing. I've talked about the books and how people, when I would travel and speak and share my story, people were saying they needed something tangible. And
Yeah.
what better way to reach the masses than to put your story, to put your love, to put what you cherish and what you value into a book. And so
Absolutely.
that's what I've done. I'm an educator through and through. And so in my books, I try to educate people. And that's
Nice.
kind of where I am and how my journey has started, from just writing different articles to
Mhm.
traveling and speaking to having, hosting my own show. So I think
Wow.
that we have to be willing to dream even after we become parents. We have to allow our children to see us dream and have visions, have goals, have
Reach.
wants and
Yes.
desires, and not feel like you're stuck in a rut. And so
Yes.
my kids have seen me on a journey. They've seen the rocky road.
Yes.
It's been one where my children have said, "Mom, I've seen you work hard and I've seen you achieve your goals. You are doing what you set your mind to, and I'm proud of you." To have my children tell me that they are proud of me is the best feeling in the
Best
world.
feeling,
It doesn't matter what
anybody else says.
so much. It's the people who know
Mission
you.
accomplished.
It's the people who know your faults. When they tell you that they are proud of you, it hits different.
It does hit different. Elle, we're gonna pause here and take a quick break. What I want to do when we get back, you've really kind of talked about starting with the blog to where you are now. And I want you to talk about, your books. I want you to talk about your speaking engagements, the things that you find yourself doing. And I want to see exactly not how you got there, but where you are now and what can people expect from Cleverly Changing. But let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
I created the Sickle Cell Coloring Book for Kids because, just like you, I was worried about my child's sickle cell diagnosis. I had so many questions that I needed answered. This coloring book answers how sickle cell affects the body. It shares terms that will help you understand what's going on so you will be empowered.
All right. If you are just joining us, we are on with Elle Cole of Cleverly Changing, and she has been sharing her story with us. Mom, entrepreneur. She wears many, many fantastic hats. Author. This has been such a treat talking with Elle so far tonight. And so where we were before the break, we were just about to get into what do we do now? What is it? What is Cleverly Changing about? But before we jump into that, I noticed that we have 2 questions or 2 comments on social media that I want you to kind of chat about. So Winston Taylor is popping in. How have you dealt with the inherent risks of letting people in? Ooh, that's a big one. Okay. Elle, what do you have to say to that?
That is a big one because I think I don't know about everybody else, but I think it's always scary when you have a fear of being hurt. And we know that
Mhm.
no matter where you are, when you're dealing with other people, you may face hurt. And so it's about learning how to heal
Yes.
even when you may be hurt. And so sometimes that can be learning how to communicate without taking things personal. So
Yes.
I'm kind of going to touch on that by saying that, yes, I still struggle with letting people in, but I think that for the most part, I feel like the journey that I'm on and the experiences that I encounter are
Mhm.
bigger than me.
Yeah. I want to add into that because there are a great many people who might be on the cusp of a really great idea or a really great thing that they want to venture in on. And this fear that you're talking about is kind of holding them back. What's been the benefit for you of facing that fear and forging forward? What's been the benefit?
It's been growth. To be
Yes.
honest with you, I'm going to be very honest. You cannot grow or achieve your goals unless you take risk and take out
Yes.
and step out of those comfort zones, step outside of times when you feel like you're just at ease. If
Mhm.
you want to prosper, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, etc.,
Mhm.
then you have to stop being stuck where you are. You have to
Yes.
let go and move on. And so that could be letting go of people, that could be
Mhm.
letting go of a mindset
Yes.
and connecting yourself with people who are where you want to be, who
Mhm.
have a mindset that you find positive and attractive. And, you know, I'm not saying just go for those who are prosperous and are living the life that you want to live, but also when you align yourself in those sort of spaces and
Yes.
you see opportunities where you are in that position where other people want to be, it's easier to give back because
Yes.
you now have a healthier, balanced mindset.
Mm.
So everywhere you're not going to be on top. But
Yes.
there should be some spaces where you are on top and then some spaces where you're the person who's growing. And so I've had to rethink the way
Mm.
I do things and say, is it going to hurt me or is it going to help me? What
Yes.
can I gain? How can I grow if I do this?
Yes. I love how you're talking about this. And it just brings me back to the whole kind of purpose that we have here at KW Ministries, where it's about I've had this experience, and out of that experience, I'm going to allow it to take me to a different place, which is exactly what you're saying, a place that's better, bigger, different. Um, there's so much positive, positive correlation to doing things that even if it doesn't feel comfortable, to go ahead and do it does mean our growth. I heard it said one time, do it scared. We don't have to wait to not feel afraid to do something or to feel comfortable to do something. We do it anyway because we know it's going to get us to a different place. And that's the whole point. So I've got another one for you from Jennifer Wilson. So Jennifer says families, especially during this pandemic, are having challenges holding it together as parents and children alike. What would you say is the one glue that keeps it all together? Is there one glue? I'll add on to that.
So, I think we have to be honest and accept the fact that we have challenges. So, acceptance is the first thing. And the next thing is having that faith. And for me as a Christian, I find my faith in the Lord. And I rely on Him to put things in perspective for me, because this life isn't easy for anyone. You know, we see the struggles that we have personally, but when we look at celebrities, they're struggling too. When we
Yeah.
look at the people that we work with, many of them are struggling. And
Yes.
so you have to have a hope that things will get better, that we won't be in this position always. I like to tell myself this too shall pass when
Mhm.
things are hard. And recently, I've actually been going through a tough time where it seemed
Yeah.
like so many things were, so many challenges were happening. So last month, I did my first virtual experience for the sickle cell community,
Wow.
where I created a sickle cell caregiver summit with the Sickle Cell Community Consortium. We partnered together to give caregivers a place to find answers to their questions, to find understanding, empathy among one another, and a place where they could talk and learn and hear the latest research. While I was going through that journey, some major things happened. All my refrigerator stopped working, and all of the food in my refrigerator
Oh,
spoiled.
no.
And it was very difficult because my daughter is, in addition to having sickle cell, she also has type 1 diabetes. So we had extra insulin that we had to keep
Mhm.
cold. And
Mhm.
it was like, God, you know, we don't need this, especially right now. And
Yeah.
so that was one journey that I was like, hey, how do you put this thing into perspective? Because you can't quit because things in your life aren't going right now. You
Yeah.
have to keep trying. And so we found a repair person to come in and repair it, and it cost the same amount as it would to get a new refrigerator. So at first I was complaining, but then I was like, wait a minute, you know, what did I learn from this?
Mhm.
I felt like the Lord had told me a long time ago to get a backup refrigerator just in case. And I have been stubborn. So
Yeah.
sometimes you need to listen to that still small voice, and
Yes, blue.
you know, or things will happen. And so I finally did it. It did, you know, take a tragedy to make it happen, but
Mhm.
you know, I learned from it. I
Yeah.
learned to make sure that, you know, you have a backup refrigerator. So
Mhm.
if anybody who has ever experienced that, if you have a diabetic in your family, then
Yeah.
you know exactly what I'm talking about. It can be a scary thing. And
Yeah.
so I also learned to make sure that I'm prioritizing, to make sure that, you know, I'm doing my home maintenance, my home checkup, because after the refrigerator was fixed, the heat went out. And I
Oh my
said, wait a
gosh.
minute.
What
But
is
listen,
happening?
I'm sharing this
Yeah.
because when you're doing good,
Yes.
it is inevitable that you will be tried and tested.
Yes. I want
And
to tell you what Jennifer said while you just not to cut you off, but just to tell you what she's saying as you're going on. She's like, congratulations, you are really an inspiration amidst the challenges. And I wanted to make sure you got that shout out from Jennifer.
thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. I appreciate it. But you know, when you're in that struggle, your kids are watching you. Like, how
Yes.
are you dealing with this adversity? You
It's an
know, and
opportunity, isn't it?
yeah, and it could feel like, oh man, you know, I don't even want to see what tomorrow's going to be like because today was so bad. And so it can be a struggle to get out of bed, but your kids are watching you and you have
Yes.
to get out. You have to show them that even when things are trying, when they're stressful, when they feel like you can't handle them, you
Yeah.
still have to get up and go. You still have to try, and you still have to do your best. You
Yes.
don't have an excuse to turn in, you know, bad stuff. I had worked so hard for that conference. I could not turn back. I
Right.
knew that people were counting on me, and I knew that God was counting on me because it
Yes.
wasn't something that I came up with. Because
Mhm.
again, if it were up to me, I would just deal with my family and nothing else. But I
Mhm.
knew that my purpose was greater than me. And
Yes.
so we got that fixed. And
Mhm.
again, there are things you can do to mitigate problems, but I realize I have to prioritize. I have to make sure that I'm not just doing the things that I enjoy, that I'm doing all the things that as an adult we have to do.
That we
I
have
have
to
to
do,
show up
yes.
and mature as an adult. And so I'm being fully transparent that, it's been one of those experiences. Adulting
Absolutely.
can be hard, but I knew that it was a lesson that I wanted my children to learn, and I wanted them to see that even when bad things happen, you have to keep going.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jen has another question for you. Jen, she is on it tonight. And I'm sure that we have all had these days, Jen. So the specific question is, have you ever had a breakdown day when you just had to cry behind closed doors? I think we've all had that one.
Yes, yes. Because sometimes things are hard and it's like I need a reprieve. So for me, I'm going to be fully honest. Sometimes at night, I just have to run a bubble bath. My mother got me some Epsom salt and bubble bath, and I use them
Yes.
because I need that quiet time to regroup, to listen to some music, to help refocus myself, and to kind of shut out the world. So that sound of water, that just make it a respite. Sometimes we can't get to a spa, especially when
Sure
we're
can.
having that breakdown moment.
Yep.
So for me, I like to drink some herbal tea and take a bubble bath, put on some candles and some music, and just have a time where I'm breathing in, breathing out, and refocusing. And so that's what I do. It's not just what I tell people to do,
Yes,
it
this
is
is what
what
we do.
I do.
Vivia Hay is saying, thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability with us. Thank you for that, Vivia. So I want to ask you this, Elle, because I don't want us to get out of the show all the way out before we know this part of things. Cleverly changing. What are you offering to the world? You talked about your purpose. What is what is inherent to cleverly changing that people can expect from you? And how do they get access? Tell us all about it.
So most definitely, I want to let people know, what does cleverly changing mean? And cleverly changing means that as a parent, this journey that we are on will be constantly changing.
Yes.
So I have a motto where I say um, that I am a parent today and always, but my kids are looking at me to be clever and to be flexible and change when I need to. So I don't just show up as I am without any sort of opportunities for growth. I haven't arrived at that. I
Mhm.
always have to be willing to change when I need to. And I'm not afraid to say that. I am still a work in progress. I am still learning and trying to be the best person that I can. And I know that that is why God gave me the husband that he did,
Mhm.
because where I'm strong,
Mhm.
that's where, we can kind of, um,
Balance
those are
each other
areas
out.
where it's not necessarily his strength. And so where I'm weak, that's where he's strong. And
Mm.
that's how we have learned how to work together. And that's how I've had to change as a woman, as a mom. It's been one of those journeys where I'm giving, I'm learning, I'm evolving, and I'm okay with it. I'm actually very happy and excited about it because yes, change is good.
Yes, absolutely. So there's Winston Taylor. Are we giving away any of Miss L's books tonight? L, what can we do? What can we do?
Yes, yes. So you showed a commercial about
Yes.
my latest book. So this is my fourth book and it's about Joseph. And what I love about the book is some of the illustrations. So I don't know if you all can see that, but it has beautiful, beautiful illustrations.
Nice. We
And
can.
this book is a part of a series called All in All, and I wrote the book with a company called Melanin Origins. And so if you can see, it takes those Bible stories. This one is about Joseph, and it's a part of the fruits of the Spirit. So it says, Joseph, a man of kindness and goodness. So those are the fruits of the Spirit that it touches on. And we can actually give 5 of these away.
Awesome.
So that's a lot. But I want people to be able to share them. So if you are like a teacher in a school, if you are someone who has a daycare, this is a book for your community. Because we need that representation. We need family. We need love. And that's what this book highlights. And I enjoyed writing it. And so I know that you and your community will also enjoy it.
That is so awesome, Elle. Now we've got a random selection going on in the background for who gets one of these awesome books from Elle. And so we're going to run that in the background. We're going to randomly select somebody. I'll let you know before we are done who our winners are going to be. But we appreciate so much having our viewers being able to benefit from what you have put out in the world. Now, I know that in addition to your latest book, you've also written a couple of others. You also have an ongoing podcast. Where can people access this stuff?
So my website is cleverlychanging.com. So if you're looking at my name right now, you see it says Elle Cole, then it says Cleverly Changing. Just add a .com on the end and you will be able to find my space. And when you go there, you'll be able to see a tab for podcasts. You'll see a tab for shop. So I have t-shirts, as well as books, but I also have apparel. Some are homeschool related. Some are about cleverly changing, that whole motto, that whole concept. And then some are about proud to be a caregiver. So those are different ways that I show up. So if you are listening and you know that this show will bless somebody else, tell them, say, hey, they're giving away books. I just saw this mom, she's sharing, and tell them to join, tell them to listen. They can watch the replay. So, it is just an opportunity for us to let other people know that they're not alone. And they're not on this journey alone. And so I'm here to say, just like I've been able to work on the things I love and work on fulfilling my purpose and building my legacy for my family, then, you can too.
Awesome. Elle, where do we hear the podcast? How do we access that?
So my podcast is on all of your favorite podcast platforms. If Apple is your space, we're on Apple. So again, if you go to cleverlychanging.com, you go to that podcast tab, you will see different links to the other platforms. But even if you have a smart speaker, you can ask your smart speaker to play my show. That is how my mother is 84 and my sisters play my show so that she can hear me. And so for her, it's like a radio. She's like, oh, do you have a new show? So she's always looking for my new shows. And so it comes out. This is my 4th season of the show. And my 67th episode was just released. And so now for the 4th season, I'm actually releasing shows weekly. In the past, they were bi-weekly, but I know that on this journey, while we're in this pandemic, because we're still in it, we often need more and we need to show up more. And so that's why I am, for season 4, sharing weekly shows. So if you have a show idea, let me know. You can send me an email at cleverlychanging, contact@cleverlychanging.com. And I'm also on social media. So on Instagram, go to Cleverly Changing Podcast, follow me, share me a message there. On Twitter, I'm on Cleverly Changing without the G. I know that makes it complicated, but I definitely show up there because it's a great platform to have conversations. And just like we're having this conversation now, I like to connect with people. I like to hear your story and understand what your needs are. And so those are some of the places that I show up. And so I'm on YouTube as well at Cleverly Changing. If you go to cleverlychanging.com, again, you will be able to find me and all of the platforms that I'm on. And so I'd love to connect with you. I'd love for you to listen to my show. It's about home education because as families, even if we don't homeschool, and I actually put my kids in school this year for the first time ever.
Wow.
And so I'm talking.
Yeah, we might have to have you back.
Yeah, and I'm sharing about virtual. So right now they're virtually learning. They do go to school, but because of what's happening in the world, they've been virtual for about 2 months. And so I share that experience. I share the tips and tricks that we've learned. And so I have a co-host who I went to Pine Forge Academy with, and she is still homeschooling her four little ones. So we talk about supplementing that education. So I was saying that even if your kid is in a school, you need to supplement the education because we have to teach our children who they are. They don't learn that from books. They learn that from us. And so our jobs as parents are not done. We still have to teach our children, just like we were teaching them how to walk and talk and ride their bikes. Our jobs are never done. And so, we talk about that journey in a real way, just like we're having a conversation right now.
Love Vivian is like part 2. Great info. So Elle, look out for the invitation. We are definitely gonna have you back. Jennifer had said earlier as well, your children and spouse must be so proud of you. Thank you for sharing. So you have really come and you have created a lot of space, a lot of meaning in this space that we've had tonight. And I think that people watching are getting a lot out of what you have shared. Elle Cole, mom, entrepreneur, author, speaker, phenomenal woman. I love what you have shared tonight. I love that you have been so vulnerable. I love the way that you have talked us through your experience and how you have come to the place where you are now. We're out of what could have been a really challenging situation where you could have gone, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? I could have thrown my hands up and just, but you didn't do that. You have shown us tonight what it means to take a challenge and turn it into a victory. And I love that. I love that. Jennifer says, solid stuff, solid stuff. Yes. Elle, before we go, and we only got 3 minutes left. So before we go, and you kind of alluded to this in a couple of the last things that you said, but to somebody out there who wants to get started with something but doesn't know quite where to start, what do you want to say to that person?
Start with your pain. Because I believe that your pain is directly connected with your purpose.
Yes.
Sometimes, and I said it earlier, the things that we go through is sometimes not just for us. It's so that our testimony can strengthen the lives of other people. And I'm a living testament that that's true for me. And so I'm not afraid to show up and be honest and say, look, this was painful. And I was in that situation and it was hard, but I'm now on the other side. So show people that even despite the pain that you've been through, you can get to the other side. And I'm not saying that you just write about, painful things or trials. You can make that fun and effervescent and lively. It's what you make it. But your story is where you start.
That's where you start. This has been Monday Night Live with KW Ministries, and we have heard tonight from the one and only Elle Cole. Please check out her stuff, www.cleverlychanging.com. It's easy to remember. And check out all of her products. Do we have a winner yet tonight, Anna Kay? from our random drawing before we jump out of studio. Let's see. Drum roll, please. Taylor is the random winner. We're gonna have to go again, guys. If you're watching, Winston Taylor is not allowed to win. He's already in KW Ministries. So let's see who else is gonna pop up. And there she goes, Vivia. You are our winner tonight. Yes, ma'am. Now, Vivia, what you want to do is just go ahead and in our messages, our Facebook message, you can go ahead and let us know how we can get that to you, and you will be the recipient tonight.
Congratulations.
Woo! Thank you guys so much for being on. This has been a great experience. And like I've said like 3,000 times already, Elle, we got to have you back. So we're going to set it up and we're going to make it happen. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Join us again next week, Monday Night Live, right here, same time, same place. Have a great one, guys.
Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
again, Elle.